Hey everybody, um, stream back in the blog. Um, Yesterday I spent a good deal of time. Well, first of all, we took a look at what did we took a look at replacing host bindings. It was a lot of fun, and then I failed miserably at getting animations to work. There's a good reason why I failed, and a couple of things to be aware of. Um, so I spent 2 hours after the stream just trying to figure out what was going and I failed. And I think this is kind of an important part of learning in public, right? Everybody struggles when they learn something, um, and like animations is something that I'm not strong at, and I admit that I am struggling learning things here. But there were some signs as to what was wrong. Um, I want to start with some. Go to go to. I was trying to use the hiding feature on the side. I'm not sure if I like. We'll see how I feel about it. I am using the Arc browser. I started using that yesterday. Um, there are a lot of good things about it. One thing that I wish I could do is reorder these down here. And maybe I can. I just haven't figured out how to. I'll need to look through that. But got different spaces. I think my main space is just trying to look. There we go. I just don't want to put my email all up on the on stream, but there are these spaces here, and you can move back and forth between them with the keyboard, which is nice. And the spaces are nice. I wish I could rearrange these so that this space showed up first and then the other space up second. I don't know how to do it. I'll figure it out. Anyway, I wanted to take a look at something specific with might have been on that first page. Oh, that's right. That's right. No, this is specific to single file component. The analog single file components have um, some things that they want you to do, right? They say they've got performance first defaults, meaning that you've got on push change detection, no access to ngdo check and things like that. Um, so by default, we're in an on push situation. And for some of you who have experience with Angular, you probably see where I'm going with that. Um, there were more hints what was going on. I was really struggling, and then the disallowed metadata stuff here. We can't change the change detection; it's always on, and this has implications, and it's part of the issue that we were running up against. So, a lot of people don't turn on push, but on push causes change detection to be slightly different. We can take a look at that if we go to Angular Dev. Inside of here, if we look for, maybe we want to take a look at that. We'll take a look at that here. Detection strategy. So you've got these change detection strategies. Change detection default is the default strategy that Angular runs. And it's going to run change detection whenever the DOM needs to run change detection, regardless. And that could be when an observable makes an HTTP request, be when a button's pressed, it right. There are a whole bunch of things that can cause change detection, and if you run every component in default change detection, you may be change detecting components that you don't need to change, like you don't need to check, right? They haven't changed. On push changes that, and it's the optional mode. And there are a couple things to be aware of, right? The framework only checks if a component's DOM needs to update when the component has input changed as a result of bindings in a template. An event listener on this component run, or the component is explicitly marked for check via mark for check or something which wraps it like type, right? So there are very, very specific ways to get your component to do change detection. We don't have async pipes because we're using signals. We didn't use mark for check. Our event listener, our component doesn't have event listener, and our inputs hadn't changed. And so on push, I like to default to on push, but there are some considerations to take into account. I wanted to see reading signals in on push components. So Angular tracks the signal as a dependency of that component. When the value of the signal changes, Angular automatically marks the component to ensure it gets updated. And the next time change detection runs, keeping component subtrees. So this is interesting because this is what I thought would happen. And let's go take a look at the code. That's question. So currently, and what I did is I went and I stashed the changes that I spent some time doing. But if we look, we've got this next size observable here. And our next size is a generator, right? Inside of here, we read that generator, and if we get a size, we set the new size. Oh, we don't read. We aren't reading anything. So we weren't getting marked for check. What does that mean in our component? Because this component is on push, and we can't change that. So we need to figure out how to fix it. And what are the hints doing that? I need to get used to. What are the hints that what we were doing was causing problems? Let's take a look at that, right? Here we are, and what we were trying to do is animate the change on this. So when it shrinks, it would animate, right? And you guys may not have seen that. So here we go. We're on this page, and let me see. Can I show that I'm? So when I click, watch over here, right? So here I go. I'm going to make the first click. Boom. Notice that we got the resize event. That resize is right here. And I knew that this was going on, and I figured we'd fix it later. But this is the root of the problem. We can't animate anything because nothing changed. And when I would click again, notice that it says that it's changed, but I thought this change was due to the click event. It wasn't. And how can we prove that out, right? One way is to cause change detection to happen on the page. One way for us to do that is let's just quickly change what we're looking at. Notice that when I change the theme, stuff resized here. So, watch over here when I click, according to Angular, this is 320 pixels in size. According to the browser, nothing's changed. Well, why hasn't it changed? Well, the change detection hasn't run, so the binding for that height hasn't changed. But if we cause that to change, right, now it changes to the appropriate size. And, because nothing's changed, now when we run change detection, when we change that, we're okay. So how do we fix this? And I tried a couple of different things. So one of the first things I tried is let's just throw a change detector ref, right? So we can just do const cdr equals inject or change detector ref. Yep. We'll grab that. So now we've got our change detector ref. So the first thing I did is I just said, hey, if we change this, let's just say cdr.mark for check, right? Let's save this. There we go. So now we're saved and we're all good. And I got prettier working yesterday. That's what took so long. It was processing the page and then running prettier through it. But so now we've got our CDR mark for check, right? And there I go, opening a browser on my other monitor again. So let's go ahead and let's just refresh this. One thing to do is go into network and let's just disable the cache. So now if I refresh, we won't get a cached version. It's going to get a new version of everything. And if I click, notice that we're still getting the resize event, but we aren't getting the change detection. Even though we marked it as needing change detection, we just marked the component as needing change detection. We didn't tell Angular to run more change detection. We just said, hey, we need change detection, but we didn't say, run it again. So the next thing I did is, let's just move it outside of the start to transition, right? We're going to mark it for check immediately and just see, does that do anything for us? Go ahead and refresh and just make sure we've got everything. Click, and oh no, we're still in the same situation, right? So marking the component for check in a component that is marked as on push doesn't necessarily guarantee that we will get change detection. So, okay, we said that doesn't work. Well, what if we go, all the way and we just do detect changes? Right? So I don't want to run detect changes every time. Oops. I don't want to run detect changes every time they click that image, or in the future it'll be when we scroll, right? When the parallax happens. I don't want to run detect changes. So how do we handle that situation? So I figured, only if we get a new size, then we'll run it, right? So here we are. We're here again. Grab this and detect change. Nope, still nothing. So we're still in the same situation. So then it's like, well, that doesn't work. Let's brute force it, right? Let's run detect changes every single time. Again, probably sensing a pattern here, but go ahead and reload this. Boom. So, oh, great. We can't get change detection to run. What's going on? So I was back in reading the documentation on the function we're trying to use. So take a look at our view transition. And down at the bottom of this article, it points to a couple other articles. Right, we've got a demo, and then we've got smooth and simple transitions. Let's go take a look at that. The bottom of this document, there's a section called Working with Frameworks. Within our Working with Frameworks, it talks about Angular. It says Angular you can use with view transition. So I went and I read this article. Go ahead and sign in really quick. Go back. Okay. So anyway, I started reading through this, right? And this is what we're doing. We're doing a start view transition and all of this. Then it starts talking about, right, we can use providers, we can use with view transitions in the providers. However, we go look, our app.config. Notice that I added view transitions a while ago. These view transitions allow us, they basically transition between, I'm going to keep doing that. They basically allow us to transition between pages. Like if I click here, you may notice that there's, yeah, we're not really getting a view transition. We can even go further, right? We can say, so take a look at our animation. So when we transition, we do get, oh, we are getting view transitions. Interesting. So it is running this view transition. And we can even like pause this, right? And boom. So it hasn't made the transition yet, and drag across, we'll see a crossfade, right? So we are getting view transitions between our routes. We run this and we get our transition. We can slow this down to like quarter of the speed and run this one. Okay, so we are getting the fade in. Pause it and take a look. And there are a couple of transforms happening along the we're getting a grid transform, gap transforms, but then, right, we're getting this where we're getting the crossfade. Just happening in 250 milliseconds, so it's really fast. So the view transitions are actually working in our application, but there's an important piece that I was missing. It talks over and over again about the router, and we're adding view transitions to the router and all of that stuff. And so all of this stuff is it only applies to when the router initializes view transition. I mean, you can do cool stuff like when the view transition is created, we could have certain things happen. Lots of really cool stuff in here, and they even went through and they rebuilt some of the demos. So, like if we open this one, this is a demo of transitioning between like the cats. So as we're opening this, right, we're getting some cool effects. Things are starting and stopping and moving around. This is a really cool transition effect. This is kind of what I was wanting to do was instead of getting the crossfade, I wanted to get the stuff moving and things like that. That's a really cool effect. How do we do that, right? And there's some other really cool ideas, and like this one with the JavaScript animation. I was playing around with this one too, and notice that when I click here, that we get like this circle thing wherever I click. So we're getting a circle that's generated by JavaScript that is the animation that we're seeing, right? And if I click up here, then right, the effect happens from the top. If I click here, it happens from here. So you can do some really impressive stuff with your view transition. And this is all done in Angular. You can see, I mean, the code's all here. Really, really cool stuff. But so we do have our view transitions working, right? We're getting some crossfades and stuff like that. But what we're not getting, come on, broken. Something broken. Oh, it's not broken. The problem, and I keep doing this. I've got the animations paused. Like, why are you broken? It's not broken. I've got animations paused. Turn the animations back on. We'll get the crossfade between pages. You can kind of see it, right? There's just like a slight transition effect. That's the default effect built into the browser, that crossfade. So this resizing effect, we should be seeing a crossfade. We're not. And it all comes down to change detection and our broken change detection. So adding with view transitions doesn't help. So obviously the injecting the change detector ref doesn't help either. So we'll go ahead and take that out. So how do we fix it, right? And that's where I'm just going to leave that browser window open up on my other monitor, because that way if I click it, it's just going to bring it to the front and not try to open a browser over and over again. So that, all right, we're in a good spot. Window, okay. So I was right. I read through this. I was checking out the demos. I was adding code from the demos to my CSS, and nothing was working. Why wasn't it working? Well, it comes back something that it says right here. You can use the application ref.tick. And that's going to flush pending DOM changes. And so if we look in the Angular, .tick explicitly processes change detection and its side effects. This is what we needed. We needed the application ref.tick. And so at this point, I'm going to, well, actually, let's put this in, and then, so for this to work, what I did is I just grabbed a reference to the application ref. I just did const appref, inject application ref, and then we just import that from Angular core. Now we've got a reference to the application. Now we can just do appref.tick. And if we run this, come back to our app, let's just refresh it. Now when we click, notice that immediately it's changing, and we're seeing that here, right? And the other thing you're probably seeing, I don't know how well it's coming through. Let me watch my other screen as I do this. There's a crossfade effect. And we can make this more pronounced so that it's easier to see. If we go over here and in our tools, we can pull up the animations. Let's just slow this way down. We'll make it 10 times slower, right? When I click this, now you can see the crossfade effect happening. And that crossfade effect tells us that, hey, we fixed our animations. And the thing about this that kind of made me feel a little bit silly is during NGConf, Matt Hardington spoke on this. And this is where I got the idea to do view transitions, right? Because I'm getting free, like I didn't have to do any of the crossfade stuff that we're so I'm getting this for free, which is cool. But it's not the animation I wanted, right? We want to tie this to a scroll event, a parallax scroll event. And so, when they're at this size and they scroll, what we want is the first time they scroll, we want this jump to happen. And then the next time they scroll, we want this jump to happen. Then after that jump happens, then we're going to allow the entire page to scroll. And that's kind of the goal. Is to just give some interest to our scrolling. I don't know how good of a user experience it will be. This is more of an experiment on my part. If the user experience is terrible, don't do this on your sites or in live sites. I'm going to leave this live as we're working, as I add it, because it's a good learning experience. And then, if people want to go refer to how this worked, they can go back to the code and see, oh yeah, that's how he did it, right? But we do have our animations work. And at 100%, you see that it does look like there's a little bit of movement as it plays these through. And the way this works, and the reason it didn't work or without the application ref.tick, is in our code, when we call this start view transition, what happens behind the scenes is the browser basically takes a picture of what's rendered. Um, then we run this function, and when this function is done running, the browser takes a picture of the application as it is at that state, and then it applies a couple of things. And we can see this if we use the animation tools. So let's go ahead and clear these animations, pause it, let's click. So when I click on this, first of all, we get the scrubber when we're paused, right? So we can play the animation and watch it happen, which is cool. The other thing we get are these different groups. So we get this image pair, and we're going to bring this way out. Oh, I hate that happens, but I understand why. It can't play this animation anymore. This animation doesn't make any sense because we've changed it. So we'll go ahead and allow that to go through. We'll clear this. We'll pause it, and we'll run another animation. So here, we're going to bring this out. We've got a couple of important things here, right? So the first thing we did is we created this image transition group. The way we created the image transition group is in the styles. We told it, got the ng deep. Well, that's cool. This is not working. Stuff isn't working. That's fine. It doesn't matter. We'll get rid of it soon. Because if it was working, then we shouldn't see any animations, and this should be playing. This ng deep doesn't work. But what does work is here in the image, we gave it a view transition name. By giving this piece of DOM, and the image class is attached to this div, and this div is the one that's changing. So inside of where we set this up, we're setting the grid template rows based on the height. And this was something else that we changed that we didn't have to change. I thought that it couldn't animate the height change. I thought I was doing something wrong. I was doing something wrong, but I was chasing the wrong thing. And so we're changing the size of the grid, and by changing the size of the grid, that's changing a whole bunch of other things. And maybe we'll go back to this, try to get the animation to work the way I want it to, because it may be easier to animate this change in grid size than it would be to animate the other stuff. Anyway, that's how we create the secondary group there, right? And so when we're inspecting, we can see that we've got an image pair, and this is the new one. So this is what it's transitioning to, and here's the old one. This is what it's transitioning from. And we can see that this area has been marked out as being a different size, right? So as we play this through, we can start to see the crossfade. And, that crossfade shows us that here's the old stuff. And as we play forward, old stuff fades out more and the new stuff fades in. So we're here, right? And so we've created this section, and the browser takes a picture of the section as it is now, right? And then it takes a picture of the section as it was. This is the old, and then the new is how it is now. And then, these transitions are played over the top of it. So we've got the fade in animation, and then we've got, the blend mode and the fade out animation, right? So these are built in by default, and the dash UA is kind of a hint of that. That's the user agent prefix that we get. But we also get this view transition group for root. And that's the whole page. So the whole page has a transition on it too. And one of the things we could do is let's make the page transition much longer. We'll make these root transitions way longer. We'll double them, right? And this will allow us to, kind of experiment with seeing what's happening where. So these are all root. This is the image transition. We're going to set this one back to 250 milliseconds. This is a root transition, root transition, root transition. And this is really cool because we can see all of this stuff. So now when we grab our scrubber, we can see that the image has transitioned totally, but we still haven't transitioned the whole page. So we're getting that fade going, right? And so we've made that take more time. That's allowing us to see what the different transitions are. So, this is kind of a trick that you can do with the animation stuff. And because we're using view transitions, we have to pause the animation because it's animating between two images. And once this animation is done, those two images are gone and it's just replaced it with the page. And that's why we have to pause it so that it stops. There's some other cool things that I discovered. So like if we click on this, it will take us to the document. And now we can see the different groups that are created, right? So here is the root transition group. Here's the image pair that's created. And then here's the old image and the new image. And so we can see that we've got this animation that's been applied. And this is applied by the user agent style sheet. So it's applied by default from the browser. We can even go take a look. We can see the keyframes here on the fade out. So at 100%, we're at opacity 0. And then, the lighter, this one, the lighter, so we've got the fade out and then the lighter. At 0%, we start the lighter, and at 100%. We're transitioning the opacity, but we're using different mix blending here. And on the new image, we can see that we're using a fade in animation. So what they're doing with they're basically saying that once this is 100% done, we have no opacity. Here we're saying once this starts, we have no opacity. By the time we're 100% done, we'll be at the opacity of the whatever it is. And that's how they're animating that. And then our image transition here, again, we've got the default stuff, but we can go in and actually inspect the actual animations, look at what's going on, and all of that stuff. So there's some really powerful tools in the browser that allow us to look through this. Anyway, this is all stuff that I learned as I was trying to work through the issues that I was having. The animations tab is very, very useful. And notice that as I resize the screen, animations they'll no longer work because they, that we've resized the screen, so those images no longer work, right? If it played the animation from the smaller screen, it would only animate like a small portion and it would just look really weird. So resizing the screen with view transitions, the old view transitions kind of get lost. So anyway, if you pause your transitions with view transitions enabled, like I did, and then you forget about it, then you're like, oh no, what happened? Why isn't this working, right? And then I'm clicking and, oh no, my cursor isn't changing. Well, you pause the animations, it's not going. So, just some stuff I learned yesterday as I was working through this. So let's go take a look at where I got after a few hours. Yes. Um, so here, we've made some changes, um, but really all we did was add the app ref tick, and then the rest is all like prettier formatting. It's interesting that prettier moved the asterisk to the function, and um, so that's the prettier preference. I guess that makes sense. So one of the very first languages that I learned a long, long time ago was C++. Um, and C++ puts like asterisks and ampersands on the beginning of variable names or function names to show that they're references to something else. So in C++, this would be a pointer to the function next size. So I guess it makes sense to move it over here just to not confuse people and to make it more obvious that this isn't a pointer or anything. This is actually a generator function. Anyway, there's just some other formatting, right? Because now Prettier runs all the ugly stuff that I hadn't cleaned up. It's able to go in and clean up. We're going to discard all of it. So now that we've discarded that, we can go back to our browser. We can refresh, and now we can see we're back in that state where, right? We've got the animations that are playing in between. We're getting the fade in, fade out. But if I click this, now we're back in the state where change detection isn't. Change detection to happen, we've got to, have something that kicks it off. There we go. Change detection is now happening. And I'm trying out Arc. One thing I do want to be cognizant is we're using a pre-release version of Arc. So it's based on Chromium 124, but the actual release version is there. There's a way. Yeah, here we go. Check for so we're on an early pre-release version, right? 0.18. And so it is a little bit the browser that's causing issues. The browser does have some rough spots to it, but it's still a pre-release. Trying to learn it, and it actually happens to work well with the stream. But if it starts to get in the way, we'll just start using Chrome. We'll experiment with Arc over the course of, as time goes on. If you're on a Mac, Arc is available on the Mac. To get it on a Windows machine like mine, you have to sign up and be accepted to their early access stuff. So just be aware of that. That Windows is early access. There are known bugs. There get emails about bugs and fixes and stuff like that. So it's a good browser, and I've actually got a good friend of mine who encouraged me to start using Warp, which is another amazing tool. Warp is a great shell, and it does some really cool things that I like. Works right now. You can get Warp right now on your Mac, no problem, for free. If you want it on Windows, you have to join the waiting list. I'm on the waiting list. I'm hoping to get access to it. As soon as I get access to Warp, I can't wait to experiment with it in Windows. It's a great shell on the Mac. Works really, really well with the ZSH shell that I'm using on my Mac. Um, and it is one of the few things that I miss going from my Mac to my Windows machine. Warp shell. So, yeah, my good friend of mine encouraged me to use both. I like both. And if you want them, both available on like Mac. You might have to join waiting lists for Linux and definitely for Windows. Anyway, what are we going to do, right? So I stashed this. There's a couple of things that I did. And this is me experimenting with, well, this is things being, I fixed it so that Prettier runs on my CSS files. So this is Prettier doing its thing. But the other thing I did is I was experimenting with view transition. And so right now my view transitions are kind of ugly. And part of that is because I don't know a lot about animations, how to make animations work. So these animations are very ugly, but we'll at least be able to see that they work. The other thing that's in here, we can see the prettier formatting that was there. We can see the application ref.tick. I named my variables better this time around. So I named it application ref instead of app ref. There are a couple of other things here. We added this image transition class, which we can take off because we aren't really using it anymore. It was an experiment that we did on stream yesterday. We'll take that off after we apply this. But the other thing, change this to be min content, and then we realize that this ng deep doesn't work. And then inside of here in the image class itself, this is where we move the height to. So now the grid is resizing based on height. I think I'm going to move this back up into the grid and we'll go forward from there. Let's go ahead, just pop this. Sure that everything rebuilt. Now, if we go ahead and refresh, it's some. So now, see, we get kind of this jumpy animation, but it's working. And it's a little bit jumpy, it's a little bit hacky, but it's better than it was. And as we animate out, you'll notice that the fade happens here and here. And as we come in, it doesn't until we get this area set up. So one thing I want to do is I want to get this animation, the size animation, a little bit less jumpy. I want it to be a little bit more smooth. And then, we can work on the fade animation. But this took me about 2 hours to figure out. So I'm hoping that if anybody else is experimenting with view transitions, that I'm curious here. We don't really use view transitions here. So it's not going to transition this stuff. It would be interesting to see it transition, but that's for another day. I don't want to get too distracted. I want to get this view transition stuff done so that we can move on to adding the CMS and the API routes to hopefully interact with this. That's something that I'm really interested in. But I do I do like that I was able to get that. I didn't want to commit it until I showed everybody. So we're going to take a look at this stuff, but let's go ahead and stage this. And we can just say that, hey, we fixed few transitions for image. So there we go. Let's push that up. We'll be on the branch now. If I don't merge things in, that's another thing to show everybody. If I don't merge things in GitHub, and in the Angular block, there, something else. Chow every once in a while will do merge requests, and I want to make sure that I'm respectful of those and making sure that I catch them. But if I haven't merged this into the master branch, you come into here and look at the branches that are open. And I've always got branches from the stream. So inside of here, you'll find a branch named after the stream. Anything named by dependabot will have dependabot on it. And I've got 14 branches. So these are security fixes. We went over like how to set up dependabot security yesterday too. I just realized that. And then renovate is watching for upgrades. These are all done. They just haven't been merged. But you can just access those from the branches right here. And then the active branches, almost always the stream branch at the top will be the branch to use. But if I haven't merged it in, I'm always pushing at the end of the stream. There are just some times when I'm going to hang on to the code before merging it in because I want to be. I don't want to release like a broken experience. Even though we're committing regularly, and if we go look at this branch, and go here and I guess the easiest way to look at here and right, you can see that I'm committing regularly as we're building, and every time I commit, I'm always pushing. I'm not going to create this pull request. Do it later after this. But that's how you can find the code if it's not up on the it's not up on the site. You can find the code in a branch, always pushing. So you can just see the chunks of commits that are here, and all of this stuff here is either dependabot or renovate. And so I'm making these changes also in the repo as it goes. Anyway, back to the code. We've got our transition in place. And it's working. There were a couple of things we wanted to do. One thing I was experimenting with a lot of stuff. So you can get access to the transition itself. And from the transition, you can get a bunch of other things. So if we go take a look, again, article. There is this view transition interface. And so when you call document.start view transition, it's going to give you back an object that you can look at. So there's a promise on it called finished. And when that promise fulfills, then the animation is finished. There's another promise that's the ready promise. And you can hook into the animation at that point in time and control things about the animation. That's how the experiment we were looking at that does the circles, it hooks into the ready event, and it causes the circles to happen. And then, the before and after images are what, that animation plays is as it animates through the before and after images. Callback done. Again, this runs when the callback is finished from the start view transition. But I think it runs before the ready. And then you can tell it, hey, skip this transition. So it skips the animation, but doesn't skip the code that happens in the start transition, which is good. If so, one thing that they do is like if the router hasn't finished navigating, then they call skip transition. So and then they go through how to use view transition ready. We can see here that they call the start transition. They grab the transition, and then they do transition dot ready. And this is like literally, I went through all of this stuff trying to figure out stupid change detection issue. And so I'm trying to save some people some pain. But um, yeah, that's what caused that. And that's why that variable was there. Was just me grasping at straws, basically. So anyway, we can get rid of that. The next thing we can do is we can go. Oh, and here's the thing we did yesterday. So now we no longer need the metadata that we would have to put in the script tags anymore. Now we can just throw classes straight on the template, and we'll get the host bindings. So anything that you throw here will get host bindings. This binding is applied as a host binding. We can write normal Angular code and not have to go look at the host bindings. I really love this syntax. It makes it so much easier to understand what's going on because I'm using the same stuff that I'm just using right here, right? Same bindings, but they're added as host bindings to the. I love. Anyway, the other thing here, we've got this at min content. Really, we can go back to height because min content versus height do two different things. So now we're good here. Yeah, I think that's all we wanted. So go ahead and commit this stuff. I'm going to say that, we've clean up code review. And things should be running the same way. I'm still doing that. You know what? That one browser, so me leaving that browser open did me no good. That's awesome. Let's go back and so so even there, we're getting a bit of we're getting the animation. So the stuff that I thought was going on wasn't going on. And the other thing that I like is it is animating the height change. It's just going a bit faster. And so we can see that we're getting kind of a zooming effect on the mountain. It's just going really, really fast. It's a little bit jumpy. So let's see if we can clean that up a bit. Let's go up. And we've got all these different styles. And one of the things I did was like on the root transition, I just turned off all animations. And I turned the mix blend mode to normal. So if we comment this out, you'll see that we get a bit of a different experience. Go back to the browser. And one thing to note is that it doesn't pick up the changes to the styles.css. When you change it, the recompile doesn't. They're there. And now you can start to see that we're getting this crossfade. Right? So as it resizes, we're getting this fading event, um, which is a little bit weird. And that's why, um, if we turn this stuff back on, and let's, if we turn off the mix blend mode normal, and we get other interesting effects. This is just stuff that I learned from reading, right? So if we click now, actually not, but we are getting, I don't know if you guys can see it, but we're getting a fading effect over the top of the image. Um, it's just going really, really fast. Actually, we can show that. We go and we grab our animations again. One thing to be aware of is that your animations may not show up here. So like I just got rid of my animations, right? They're no longer here. How do you get those back? Right, it doesn't show here either. You open the console drawer, so you can either do it from this menu or you can hit the escape key. And that's going to open the console drawer down here. Don't know. It's actually a little bit annoying. But within here, there's a whole bunch of other stuff we can bring up. And where the anime up. So rendering's another good one to know about. Rendering has a whole bunch of nice things about, so like paint flashing. You can see that when something repaints, it flashes. That's probably not a good one to turn on screen. You can also turn on like layout shift regions, which we aren't getting. The best way to see layout shift is probably during loading. And we aren't getting any layout shift, which is really good. So um, our CLS, our cumulative layout shift, is probably really good on this. You can turn on layer borders and see where your different layers are within. Rendering's a really, really good thing to see, right? And so when I click here, we can see how much GPU we're using when I'm doing this resize, and what my FPS is. If we refresh the page, we can see that our FPS drops down to 47. And that's probably not good. I know what the issue is. The reason it's taking so long is it's getting stuck parsing the giant bundles because um, um, we're throwing Faker at it. Faker creates giant bundles, and so it has to pause to parse those bundles as it's going through the. So we could fix that, right? And here, if we have scrolling issues, this will highlight issues with scrolling. Detected to be ads. That's here we can see our core web vitals. So you can see we have no cumulative layout shift. Oh, use the web vitals extension. So that's deprecated. But anyway, there's a whole bunch of stuff we can do inside of here. One of the things that I really like is like you can tell it, hey, if they prefer a light or a dark scheme, there's a way to switch that. And we can emulate like a print or a screen emulation, right? So if we have CSS that's supposed to look a certain way when it's printed, you can emulate that here. Oh, we can force active colors, so we can see what like with active. if these things are marked as active, we can see what everything looks like when it's. Oh, so here's some more accessibility stuff. There's just a whole bunch of stuff in the rendering tab. And if you want to get it to the top the way I did, all you have to do is just say, hey, move it to the top. Oh, because I moved it to the top, it no longer shows up down here. Get it to show up here. I think I just need to move it back to the bottom. So now here it is on the bottom. The way I got it to the top was just exactly what I did there. I came in here, I found the animations, I move it to the. There's other cool stuff that we can use, like start debugging autofill problems. There's just a whole bunch of stuff down here in the bottom. I don't even know what sensors are. Oh, you can manage location sensors? That's really cool. Really cool. So I could tell, hey, I'm in Sao Paulo. That's really cool. That's really cool. Orientation. Obviously, we can flip the orientation of our device. A lot different things like that. Really cool. Wasn't aware of that. Go ahead and refresh this. And let's pause our animations and boom. So we can see that there are some issues here. So as we're scrubbing this, you can see that we've got this transition. So all of our old transitions we've turned off. So all of these full transitions here, they're at 0. The only transitions we're showing are these. This is our animation here that does the. Hey, Akila, welcome to the stream. It has been a while. Thank you for joining. Been watching. You've been doing some cool stuff. Thank you for showing up. Yeah. How you been? Anyway, we can see that it's already resized this, and that's where we're getting the jump, right? So as we're scrubbing through this, this is the old and this is the new transition. We've turned off the old stuff too. So we should probably go take a look at that too. But so when it changes, we can see that we're kind of covering ourselves. So we get this weird state. And that's why it appears so jumpy, right? Because we're animating some stuff, but this change between here, between the new and like the new area where here it is, right? So that's interesting. That's this bottom one right here, the transition group, image transition. So we can see that this group is changing size. So there it is right there, right? And as we get closer to the end of the animation, changing size. So this transition is correct. But what's not correct is the transition from here of the new image. And that's what's leading to our jumpy change, right? We aren't getting we should be getting a much more smooth transition to the smaller size, and even to the larger size. It shouldn't just jump like that, right? It should be a much more smooth transition. That's going to give a good experience. Um, I'm glad you're better, and always try to be productive. I am amazed by people who are always trying to be productive. There's just I'm not one of those people who's always trying to be productive. Um, and people who are always amaze me that they've got that. Sometimes I wish I had it. Sometimes I'm thankful I don't. Just really depends on the day and what I'm trying to do. Um, but I'm glad you're doing better. Very glad. Um, anyway, let's figure out how we can animate that change. Um, because if we can animate this change, we'll get more of a, well, there is a little bit of that going on. Um, let's slow this down to like 10%. No, it's an instant. I was gonna say it just might be my brain like interpolating between frames, right? Because your brain takes some shortcuts, right? And that's why like flip books work, and make it look like something's moving, because your brain is getting information rapidly enough that as it's sampling it, it's it's adding in the missing pieces so that you think that things are animated. Um, that's how anything works on a screen. Really, it's just refreshing the screen fast enough that your brain sees motion. It doesn't see each individual image. And that's why when we slow things down to like 10% or even 25% when we play this, we can see the parts that are moving fast, and then we can see the parts that are really slow. So, right, the illusion of movement is broken when we slow it down like that, because our brain is suddenly aware that, oh, something's not right. But you really never want things to jump on your web page. Maybe you do. I don't know what you're going for. Me personally, I like things to be smooth. Let's figure that out. To do that, go ahead and clear this, and let's pause the animation. We're going to pause, and we're going to hit it. So this transition is the part that changes. So let's slow this transition. Wait, we're going to take this transition over a second. See what happens. So now, if we go and we scrub our animation, right? When we hover here, we can see that even after all of this is finished, we still haven't. This piece here that we're transitioning hasn't finished, right? So we're still well below where it's supposed to be. Because out here, once we're out past it, we can see that the transition should be at the bottom of the image. But here, everything's all finished, and there's nothing in the animation playing. We're actually at the bottom of the image here. Interesting. So even we're slightly below it now. You know what? I bet I've got an ease in, ease out on that transit. I'm fairly certain I do. But it's this fade transition that's actually been happening. Um, so plus lighter blend mode. So let's go take a look and see what could possibly be causing that. Um, anyway, we've got a couple of things here that I was trying to figure out what's going on. Here, animating. We don't even have that transition. It's happening. I've got this animation of an ease in, ease out, 210 milliseconds. Let's take this out. Um, and let's take this out. Let's just see what we get. If we change, there I go again. I should just use the tab keys. Let's go ahead and play through. Clear this. Let's refresh. Clear it. Let's pause it. And now with nothing in there but the width, what are we animating? We've got this top, and this is the old, out at 500 milliseconds. And then we've got this one at 250, this one at 250, this one at 250. So this view transition here is the new, I think. So image transition. So this is the group. This is the new image transition, and this is the image pair. So here is the old transition, and this is the old image. And so if we scrub this, so the new stuff has already shown up before the old stuff is here, which is kind of a weird experience. And when we play it, actually we're getting kind of the effect that I wanted. It's a lot less jumpy. It's a little bit smoother. So one thing we could do, I wonder if it's that object fit stuff that I added. Let's turn this mix blend mode back to normal. Just see what happens. I just literally commented about this. Back to doing. So let's go ahead and refresh. As we That's interesting. So I was probably forcing it too much. Let's take this out. What I want to do is let's go to the page. And in our styles, let's just add a property, and we're going to say that this is the height change duration. And we'll set this at 0.5 seconds. What we can now do is go here and Um, we can just grab that var. So we can just say, hey, we want the height change duration there, and here also want to add there and the height change duration. And the benefit to this is that now we can keep them the same. And so now if we make them the same, I'm curious what the experience is like. So let's go ahead and refresh that. Boom. Um, Notice that we're not getting a lot of changes here. So if I pause this, we look, what is nothing? Um, Everything else is not playing. It's weird. There's the old. We're not playing the fade out anymore. Um, but we're animating this transition here. Um, but it's not really changing anything. So here, this is the new, and this is the new. We've turned off these with the blend mode. We've turned these off. That transition. This view transition group the width and a height on has no wonder. So we can see that we've got some animations here. So at 0%, it's here. Got a backdrop filter. None. So by default, we've already got this. And it's keeping track of this for us. Um, so what if we make this animation duration? No, let's make it. Can I not edit this? No, because it's in a style sheet. But I can go up here and I can say animation duration. We'll make that 1 second. And then we can also say that we want our mix blend mode. I don't know. What does that do for us? Go back to our animations. Play this. That's kind of ugly. But we can see that we can animate this as it happens. And so if we pause this, we look at this, we can see this transition is out to a second now. We hover, should be able to see the size changing. So we can see the size there. We move forward. We can see that this rectangle is slowly moving up but it's not so at 0% it's here. Can we do some turn that off? So we've got there. So at 0%, it's at 320 pixels. At the final transition, 240. We go look at our animation. Out here, we're at 240. Yeah, we're at 240 pixels. And back here, we're at our 320. So I'm curious. We get our animation here. And if we transition height, do anything for us? Now we're transitioning the height. Oh, we've got a 0 second. So let's also make that transition of 1 second. Match this. And now if we go back to our animation, play this, still nothing. We've got the view transition group, and at 0%, it's the transform matrix. So, oh, you can see that we're using transforms to form the height. Like here, we're transforming scale. So what does this transform matrix mean? That's what I'm curious. This is 1 0 1 0 6. So here they've got it at 1 2 3 4. not hide you off. So if we go read the transform functions, inherited, translate, rotate. The order of transform functions matter. In this example, two boxes are rotated and translated by the same values. Only the transform function is different. So here, transform, translate, and rotate. And here, rotate and then translate. Which makes sense because once you've rotated it, the x and the y. I'm trying to figure out what the matrix is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We do a 3D transform. Reduce motion. Computed stacking. Like that matrix is crazy the way that is it the oh look. CSS transform. Matrix, the CSS function that defines a homogeneous 2D transformation matrix. Okay. ABCD TXTY is shorthand for matrix 3D. AB00CD. Specified in 6 values. The constant values are implied and not passed as parameters. The other parameters are described in column major order. So A, B, C, D, and then TX and T. Cartesian coordinates. Scale X, skew Y, skew X, scale Y, plate X. So X and X, Y and Y, and scale are on the far end. So if we go take a look here, we're going to need to pop animations in, clear that. Now, if we take a look, do transition here. Transition group has a matrix scale X and Y of 1, which is 100%, and then translate X and Y of 64 pixels. Um, so looks like this starts here where that is. Got a height of 3. What's the 64 pixel? Like is that the Y trans 64? And because I've gone away, now it's changed this. Allow that one to play, clear it, pause it, and boom. All we've got is that animation. It's not doing anything. We go take a look. I broke it. Broke it because I resized it. Gotta play it, hear it, pause it. Now, if we so we start 163. So 0%, we're at 160. Our width remains the same. Using, so it's creating this for. Um, can we create can we create an animation will animate to this. Like, I'm curious. Is there a way to view transition animate? Would basically need to know, like, if we were to do like at key, and we call it height change. Um, don't like this. This is a bad animation, and we can see why. Like here, if we oops, we've got this animation right here. If we uncomment this and we say, hey, our animation is height change, and we're going to go for height change duration, and we're going to ease in, ease out, whatever. Right? I move my mouse and could hilarious. Um, then we go and we refresh this. We're going to see that going to, I pause the end. Yeah, let's play this. Now we're getting like, what is even happening here? Um, oh, I put the animation in the wrong place. Um, put that there, and let's turn object fit back to contain and just see what's there. Refresh the. Is that actually animating? No, it's not. Not because the image transition is already over what happened. You can still see that that is growing and what if turn on paint and mix blend mode normal? And what if we change this to be max? Because I think animating height doesn't work, but you can animate max height in CSS. Um, so let's see if we can animate. Refresh that. We'll get our animations to play. Refresh here, and yeah, we're. I mean, are getting are getting animation going. Clear this, pause it, take this we getting, not not transitioning the height action. What if we do, instead of from that, what if we do from, and from just maybe um, from this refresh. What is going on? Did I break it somehow? It's not animating anymore. That's hilarious. It wasn't animating because I had it paused. Actually, did we make that work? Didn't. We kind of did. If we take this out, take that out, and we take that out, do we still get the same kind of effect that I think I'm seeing? Yeah, we're getting the zooming motion. Um, I don't know if you guys, the way animating that change. So curious if we do view transition group, do image transition. Here we just do image your animation dash duration. Oh, do that. Does that change the time? There I go again, opening up another browser window, because of course I do. Does that change this? No, that animation is just so fast. In fact, now we're not animating anything. So it's jumping again. We still have the keyframes. Wonder if we do animation name height change. Just got nothing. It's not stopping it. We do. I take out this. I think I need just a transition in here. Yeah, let's try transitioning max height and just see what happens. Go ahead. Still nothing. What if we do animation height change bar that and out? Is that going to give us anything? I'm curious why we are broken. Take that out. You know what? Let's just take all of this. Say hey. There we go. Refresh. Like it's giving the zoom effect that I want. Um, but I want that to be controlled. I want to be able to slow it down. We comment all. Just curious if we can get back to where it was before. So now we've got everything commented out. We should be getting the crossfade and stuff now, right? If we're not, it's a good sign that, yeah, there we go. Now, what? Animation actually pausing. Now we're getting the crossfade. So I'm curious here if we do this view transition group, if we change that and we change the animation, what does that do? Slow it down. Interesting. Um, what if that this normal and we display none? I'm just curious what we get. Other thing. Let's try it. Let's try making that one explain normal first because it's obviously doing something. Um, and let's just leave that, and we'll make this like one we get. Go ahead and refresh. I'm just experimenting. So, which part is it that okay, we've got two pieces on here? What is that? Got a height change, but it's not doing anything right here. You transition, trying to run the height change. Oh, because we put an animation on here. Um, what if we set this to be like? Oh, something's changing. Did you see that? Um, go back to That actually got put onto mission. Here we go. Here we can transition. If we go back and uncomment, what if we just set mix blend mode normal there? We turn it off here. And we make this 1.2 seconds. Does anything. And refresh. Clear this. Clear it. Pause it. Click. Boom. Scrub. This is the old stuff. This is the new stuff. Fade out. And where is so this stuff is all taking a lot longer to run, but it's not height change. Here we go. There's the height. And this is the part that I was curious about. Got this height change going from 0 to 100%, but I'm turning off that 0 now. So now let's go take a look at animations. Here's our height. Actually, let's clear that. Let's play it. Clear that, pause it, and boom. So here we go. We've got our height change. What have we done? What's broken? It's not actually changing our height. So we're starting here and we're transitioning here. That's not doing anything. So even out here, we're 240 pixels. here we're at 240 pixels. Um, so that's my thought is to get this to work, we need a to and a from. Curious, we did a, what if we did object fit? Oh, that doesn't make sense. Did right here, what if we just did a height? Let's just 320 pixels to a height 240 pixels. We're just going to hard code this to see if my idea, I've got this idea that the issue is we need a from and a to, and don't have those. Go ahead and just boom. Now we're getting a different, actually, so now, since we've paused this, boom, we're here. And on this view transition, we're at 320 pixels. Here we're at 310. There we go. So now we're shrinking. Um, there's a bit of a grow going on there. Let's turn this off normal and let's turn this one normal. And let's say that we want this on both. Just see if that helps at all. Play this, refresh, click. So we're staying at the same height, which that transition is slowly moving down the image. Interesting. I'm curious if we turn the root back to none, what happens? Go ahead and refresh. We'll play our animations, clear things out, pause, and click. Boom, we're here. See, it's not, this height is definitely animating here. We're at 320 pixels here. We can see that we're here, but we've still got this one. Shorten this one way down. Shorten the fade out way down. Now we'll play it back. I think what we need to do on this image, here, if we do fit content, we do and then here, if we go and we do transition height, do that, and then set the height to height, what happens? Because we're animating that ourselves anyway. Oh, we're getting somewhere. Right? Because we can see that going on. Um, and what we're getting, we aren't getting this jump either. I'm curious at this point, if we set our mixed blend mode here, um, get rid of this, get rid of this. Those are both commented out. Let's just see what happens if that's all we do. There we go. But we're technically not using a view transition at this point. If we pause this, play it, we can see that we've got this image transition. Go back to our animation. We've got this going on that's just transitioning the height. So when we play that, that's what's giving us the transition. The nice thing about this is that we can actually, because it's a transition, can play this back, right? You can see this is going back and forth like we want. Balatro, that's a great game. The view transitions we don't have to worry about as much. Curious, we turn this off and turn this off. And let's just say that, hey, we want our animation duration to be the var height change duration so it matches. The other thing I wanted to do, I got distracted by a friend playing Balatro. So if we turn that back, so even without the animation none, that gives us a smoother transition. So it, it,, it, 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 hasn't given us the clear that. Let's pause it and let's go here. Um, so these groups are doing the fade in, fade out while we're running the entire length. Um, so if we do view transition group star, which means every transition group, we're going to give that height change transition. And now if we refresh, we grab this, to run it so that we aren't paused. And I think the only thing we've got is the height trend, which is fine. Um, I'm curious. Like we don't need the view transition group anymore, and that's part of the issue that we've got. And I've been struggling with this. I'd love to do it with view transition groups, but I mean we could just as easily, like if we go look at go look at here, and we go to tailwind, yes, go to the docs. Inside of here, we just look at transition, right? We can get these transitions to happen. We can say transition ease out, right? Need to use a one-off transition property value that doesn't make sense to include in your theme. Square brackets to generate a property on the fly. So we could do transition height. And then we could look at the different durations if we really cared. And then timing. We're using ease in out, which goes faster in the middle. Uh, let's see. Delays, animations. We've got spring, pulse, going on there, pulsing going on. And there's a pulsing animation, bouncing. think we do want the transition on our stuff. But it gives us kind of a zooming effect, right? And I'm wondering if we can make that zooming effect stronger um, by doing something like this, where go from that to that, and then um, maybe we even contain the painting, right? Now, if we refresh, it should like um, squish and then zoom. So we can see we're getting that interesting effect where it slowly shrinks, but we're also zooming in. And if we take off the paint, we were getting a really strong effect as it's zooming in and out, because we're getting it's animating the contain also. So while it's shrinking, the image is going into it's squishing it, and then as it's zooming out, once it gets to the end, then it switches to the contain. So we're using or it's switching to the cover. So contain is squishing the image or expanding the image as we do it. And then the cover is there. Um, we could even do something like we could mess with keyframes, and we could call it like our image zoom, right? And so 0%, um, we jump to object fit contain at 100, or we could go at like 50%. We move to an object fit, and here we go to um, like a fill. And this is just to show like then at like 80%, we can go back to our contain objects, it or cover. And so then what we could do is we could comment this. We actually don't need these two here. Instead, we can go and we can say, hey, our view transition group, and the group we want is the image transition. So our image transition group, and then we can just say that we want the animation name of image zoom, and that should potentially cause something. I mean, it's going to be weird, but hopefully that is a much smoother. That's funny. Animations. Pause that. We've got our transition, but none of these other groups doing anything. Just our transition, that is. Animation, image zoom, bar, height change direction, ease in, ease out, and both directions. Which I think is the way it works by default, but let's see if that gives us. We're getting the smoother transition because doing it as it grows. Our keyframes here aren't doing anything for us, I don't think. Which makes sense. We can't animate this stuff. And that makes total sense. We could probably see that even in the animation stuff. We hover here. There is not even seeing animation. Fade in, fade out, that's all normal. The other nice thing about using transitions is we can replay them. I don't even see if we pop. Yeah, these things can't even do anything with. Hmm. Actually liked we had before. We are getting that back. Fit cover, that's fine. Get rid of that. Our keyframes. That. All of that. I actually do kind of like the way it shrinks and then zooms after we shrink it. Kind of a fun effect. I'm not getting that. We are. So one thing that would be fun if we added like a shift click to this and it went the opposite direction. So first of all, let's commit this because I've spent way too much time on this. What is going to download and install the preview? We're good for right now. So let's go ahead and just commit and just say, hey, we got animation working-ish, we'll call it. Wow, I've been going for a while. I'm gonna stop here soon. But there is one last thing I want to do. It would be fun go backwards and forwards. To do that, we can't use the generator anymore. I'll leave that for Thursday. I want to think my way through this because if we tie this to like the scrolling animation, right? When we scroll down, we want the image to shrink like it is. When we scroll up, we want it to grow. And I just could probably use the parallax to control between the biggest and the smallest. Um, so um, so here is the biggest, and then we would get the smallest. And then as we get here, we could keep scrolling out, which would give us the ability to zoom out on the image. And then as we're scrolling up, we would slowly zoom in. Yeah, I think that would be a fun effect. And we've got our view transitions in place. That's just a fun one to watch. It just kind of zooms in, but I don't think we're doing anything with the transitions here. So my thought here, this stuff doesn't even do anything for us anymore. So we can just get rid of view transitions. We don't need them. It was a fun experiment. Yeah, we're getting the same effect. So the reason we're getting that zooming effect is getting that object covered. Is a bit weird that, oh well, I'll let it be. We are getting a little bit of animation here, which is interesting. We pause this. We're once again getting animations across the. So we are getting a little bit of that flicker. We do have some view transition going here to help us potentially make things a little bit smoother. I'm going to leave it for now. I think I'll leave it for now. At some point, it might be fun to animate this view transition too. But, we'll think about that later. Thank you, everybody, for being here. In the end, normal transitions won out over view transitions, which, let's be honest, it makes sense. View transitions are probably more for when we're actually transitioning a whole view. and less about when, we're getting. And so these transitions are happening within a view, and we want everything to react to that transition. So it makes more sense to do that transition this way. So, in the long run, um, we live and learn, right? Um, we'll continue. I'll get this committed. You guys have a great evening. I'm having trouble ending the stream because I got this to the point where I'm like, oh yes, we can start doing stuff. We'll finish this up. We'll get the parallax stuff in. After that's done, um, then we'll hook up the CMS, and then we're done with this, right? Once we've got our CMS in place, then it's crazy to think, but we're nearing the end of this. Actually, there's one other thing I want to explore, and that's um, testing analog components. Curious how that works, how we do it, because I'd like to show that on stream and then move on to the next project. But yeah, thank you guys for being here tonight. We'll see you Thursday at 5:30 p.m. I don't have anything going on this week, so yeah, Thursday at 5:30, we'll be back. We'll finish this up, and then we'll probably be looking at CMS on Sunday.